Hello and welcome to Primary Sources, a spin-off podcast from the Doctor Who show where we take what people were saying about Doctor Who back in the 80s and the 90s in magazines and fanzines and we riff on it. The conversation might stick closely to the primary source or it might go off on its own strange tangent. Who knows? For this episode, I'm joined by my Doctor Who show co-host Dave. Hello, Dave.
Hello, Rob.
How's things?
Things is good. Things is exciting. Ready to go.
Excellent. Well, before we get into this one, I'm going to tell you, we normally do 3 letters. Tonight, Dave, I'm going to try and do it with 2.
Okay.
Because this letters page is very short. It's only a single letters page, and it would be remiss of me not to say which issue we're in of Doctor Who magazine. It is issue 273, January of 1999. And I couldn't go past one of the letters, so... I thought, okay, I can only pull 2 out of this. Let's go with 2.
Excellent. So, sorry, say it again. Which month are we?
We are in January of 1999.
99?
Yeah.
Goodness, I was at university.
And I have no idea where this first letter's going to go, but I just have to read it.
Right, I'm ready.
The letter is called It's a Wonderful Life. And it begins, I have been trying to get ready for the 35th anniversary. I am very excited. I try buying Doctor Who merchandise, but my parents will not let me. Whenever I try and watch Doctor Who, I get yelled at by my father. He hates Doctor Who because it is British. He does not like the British because the British were not nice to the Turks. I told my father that is history. My father said that Doctor Who is history, and I just yelled back at him, so I've gotten into a lot of trouble. My mother will not let me get the memorabilia because she says it costs a lot. I asked her if I could go to the 35 Up convention in England, and my mother said, shut the hell up. I told her we should have enough money to go to England because this last summer we went to Turkey. To tell you the truth, I did not do so well in school last year because of getting ready for the 35th anniversary. I was born too late. I wish I was born 40 or 50 years before so I could have seen Doctor Who's debut. I missed it all, and I'm going to again. I hope all of you at Doctor Who magazine will have a nice and enjoyable anniversary that will never be forgotten. I will somehow celebrate. I am so far away from England. And that's from Basin Ahmet Tulu, Michigan, USA. Dave.
As always, Rob, with your picks, there's a lot there that we can talk about, and my mind can go in all sorts of directions. And The first place my mind is going is to the Mythmakers, because when you mentioned Turkey, I thought, well, Troy was in Turkey.
Yes.
And the Mythmakers were set in Troy. And the Mythmakers is a really fun, witty little story that I think, were it to be discovered, would actually be very, very highly regarded. Very similar, I think, to the Romans. Just that fun, witty story with a little bit of darkness, and that's very interesting. But I suspect that's not the real point that the author would want me to take out of his letter.
Probably not.
I must admit, as you were reading it and it was going through, I did sort of have a vague sense that maybe the author was going to end up being somebody ironically famous or something, and that was signed by Billy Piper, probably, anybody like Russell T Davies or Stephen Moffat would, Matt Smith might be the right age. How old was Matt Smith in 99? Is he younger than me?
Oh, gosh.
I think he is, yes.
Could be.
Probably not quite that young, but yes, I thought it was going to be, signed Matt Smith, and he went on to be the Doctor and showed his parents. But no, it wasn't.
That would have been fabulous.
I mean, there is that old Peter Capaldi, wrote to Dwas and all the rest of it when he was a kid. So those things are out there. It's very, very 1999, and it's funny because this was the period when I was towards the end of my time in fandom, or at least my first big time in fandom, when I'd been very active in the 90s, because there was that sort of feeling. This is probably the darkest of the dark.
Yeah. In
terms of the telemovie came out in 96, it had flopped, and whether you like it or not, it didn't lead to a series, and it was kind of like, well, that didn't work, and I guess the show's not coming back, and DWM was really struggling to know what to do with itself. This is the sort of the period, again, and I think I was still buying DWM at this stage, but probably not for much longer, when it was sort of, here we have a 4-page special interview with the fourth Ogon from the left. And you're sort of like, yeah, they're getting a little desperate. Or, we're interviewing Nick Courtney again. And that kind of was the vibe around fandom. So it was a little bit negative, and I think a lot of people were moving away from the show, including loyal viewers and loyal fans. And so for somebody getting into the show at that point, it would have been a really tough time, like even tougher than getting into it in the early 90s. They're just like, what do you do? I mean, I don't think Big Finish had come around at this stage. The Virgin books had gone, the BBC books were out there, and they could have got into that, but there wasn't a lot around. So I certainly can kind of understand that. As for the parenting, well,
I get the feeling his parents are possibly immigrants to the US if they're still going back to Turkey, and he's a young boy of Turkish parents. He's in Michigan, and he's into Doctor Who in 1999. It's a strange mix.
I mean, they make movies about that, don't they? There was that movie that was out, I want to say at the start of last year. Well, we're recording this in early 2021. I want to say early 2020, there was a movie, the title of which escapes me, but it was about the son of an immigrant family in the UK who found his artistic release through Springsteen. And through Springsteen, he was inspired to be a better writer, and he won creative prizes, and his parents were, no, you've got to stay and get a real job, and we didn't emigrate to this family for you to go and listen to rock music and become a writer. And that's one example of many. You think of sitcom characters, drama characters, movies. There is a trope there. And as somebody who went to high school with at a selective entry boys' school that had a very large number of those first generation immigrants, that the parents wanted the absolute best for them because they had got this opportunity in this new land, whether it's Australia or America, whatever. I can personally think of families like that. The idea of Doctor Who being the release for them, it's interesting. I like it. The idea of writing that to DWM and DWM publishing it, I think, well done to them for that.
Yeah.
Because it is interesting and very foreign to me, because I discovered Doctor Who through my dad. My dad was a fan from November 1963, and I had no choice. If he was looking after me, Doctor Who was on.
Well, this is the thing, because you and I have spoken about this before, our sort of debuts into Doctor Who fandom, and you've spoken very, very lovingly about your dad bringing you into it. And I've thought back on my time, and my mum was very supportive of me. She'd drive me to the local fan group meetings and such. But my dad kind of didn't get how obsessive I was about it. And he used to actually refer to the show, I can't believe I'm going to say this on the podcast, as Dr. Bloody Stupid. He'd say, oh, you're watching that Dr. Bloody Stupid again. And he didn't get me being fanatical for it at all. So I kind of feel for this kid, actually.
Yeah, the thing that my mum didn't get was how you could watch something again.
Right.
And again. It's like, well, why do you want to watch that? You've watched that. She never sort of understood that thing. Whereas my dad was much more the same of like, you have your favourite series and you go and you watch them again and you find new things in them and all the rest of it. So, yeah, a lot to unpack in that, and a very different letter. I think that's all I've got to say. But the Mythmakers were set in Turkey. That's my headline.
I think I want to find... Is it stalkerish if I try and find Baysan on Facebook or Twitter or something and say, hey... 22 years ago, you wrote this.
It would depend entirely how he took it, I think.
He might be like, oh, I fell out of love with Doctor Who the following year. I haven't cared about it in 20 years.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Wow.
Shall we move on?
Please.
Okay, this one is called Praying for Rain. Oh, the horror of it! The release of the Ice Warriors collection, quite the finest piece of Doctor Who merchandise the BBC has ever produced, has been marred by one silly, irritating, niggling thing. The compilers have forgot to include the 2 existing clips from The Abominable Snowman episode 4. Every other clip from a missing episode is there, bar these two tiny extracts. It is strangely ironic given they were discovered by Steve Roberts, one of the leading members of the team behind the fantastic Missing Years documentary. However, we should not let this omission cloud our appreciation of what is a truly fantastic package. The documentary is marvellous, and the care and attention that has been lavished on it can only be applauded. The pleasure that I felt at being able to finally see a Chumbly. The presentation of the Ice Warriors itself is quite superb, with beautiful prints of the episodes and an ingenious linking segment covering the two missing installments. Let us hope this will serve as a portent for things to come. The Reign of Terror and the 10th Planet are long overdue for a video release, and this format would be far more suitable than the old Talking Heads approach of the Invasion. And why not put out improved versions of stories? The Moonbase could be turned into a marvellously watchable experience with the telesnaps and audio extracts approach, especially as a better copy of episode 4 has now been found. Also to be praised is the fantastic quality CD of the two missing episodes. More please, even if they're on tape rather than CD. Let's see Marco Polo and the Daleks Master Plan on the shelves within a year. The Ice Warriors collection has set new standards for the release of Doctor Who. Let us hope they can be maintained. And that's from Mark Roberts in Leicester.
Leicester, fantastic. The Earl of Leicester is played by
Here we go.
No, never mind. I won't go down into classic British stuff. That's really, really interesting, Rob, because coming from this time period, it actually is invoking very genuine and very real memories for me. Mm-hmm. Because as soon as you mentioned that Ice Warriors pack, I can remember the Doctor Who Club of Victoria Christmas party of December 1998. It being a big deal that we had a copy of this that had been, air mailed out from the UK to raffle off as the big prize for the day. And,
oh, really?
And it was a big deal. I think up there with probably the Crusade release as sort of, a really big, wow, this is a big deal video release that everyone was really excited by, and it looked nice and had the big box cover and everything. So
yeah, I didn't get this. So when I was reading about it, I'm like, oh, it's got a CD and it's got a documentary. It's like a DVD before there were DVDs. Oh, well, I guess there were DVDs in 99, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, certainly before there were Doctor Who DVDs. I don't think the first one of those was coming out for another, maybe a year or so, before they were doing those vanilla releases of things like Androzani. And yeah, I mean, that doco was interesting because it was probably the first really professional fan-made doco that I can remember. We had Resistance is Useless in 93, which was basically a clip show, and it was fun, and there were lots of clips from stories that we hadn't seen before, so that was nice. And the Who's Doctor Who documentary that the Lively Arts did in 77, I want to say, which is, talking to, strange British psychologists about what kids' dreams told him about Doctor Who and stuff, which was very bizarre, but some good background footage of Talons of Wen Chiang.
That had some actual school kids in it as well. I seem to have a memory of kids in a schoolroom talking about why they like Doctor Who. Is that the same one?
That's the same one, yeah. So that was a very outsiders doco about Doctor Who. Whereas this was, I mean, this is the period where fans have really taken over the Doctor Who industry, and they're making the merchandise that they want to buy. So House, Dammers and Walker are turning out coffee table books that are, what they have always wanted to buy, and we're getting docos like this. It was very controversial, though, in my little part of fandom, because the doco referred to genuinely the lowest and most unpleasant incident that I've been involved in fandom, which was a quite personal and unpleasant stoush between some people in Sydney and some people in Melbourne about something that ended up on that documentary. And I'm not going to go into the full story because without half an hour to tell it properly and give all sides, that would be totally unfair. But it was actually, there was actually quite a nasty little sort of dust up over something that was in that documentary. So that was controversial as well. But
was that discovered at that meeting, or was that a sealed copy they were giving away at the meeting?
No, I think it was a sealed copy.
Okay.
I don't remember when we actually saw the doco. I certainly didn't for a little while after, because don't think I got a copy from the UK of that. I think I got an Australian one, and they did take months to come out. But yeah, look, it was a big deal to include the CD in it, because the BBC, going right back to when JNT was the unofficial or semi-official consultant on the Doctor Who video range, really struggled with what do we do about releasing stories with missing episodes. And JNT's solution was that you got an actor from the show to come in and basically do the talking head that the letter referred to. So for those who aren't familiar, the first release on VHS of The Invasion, you watched... No, you didn't even... You opened with Nick Courtney saying, hey, this is what happens in part 1 of The Invasion. And it was about 3 sentences. And then you'd watch part 2 and part 3, and then Nick Courtney would be back with sort of another 3 sentences. And it wasn't even to sort of cover what happened in that episode. It was just enough to get you from the end of part 3 to the start of part 5. So, you know... Enough to tell you that the reason why the Doctor isn't in the warehouse, the Doctor got out of the cliffhanger, he then went to another location, and a cliffhanger happened. Here's the episode. So,
and now I'm off to the pub.
And it was enough to sort of get you get the characters moved from where they needed to be. And as somebody who had a lot of audio cassettes and read a lot of the Target novels, I was very relaxed about that because I kind of knew the stories. But I get for someone who's just go, The Invasion, cool, I don't know what this is about, and puts it on, and they're like, so who's that guy? And why is that guy there? And they didn't do too many of them. In fact, when J&T left the range, they got pulled, and I think there was a Carol Ann Ford did some for Reign of Terror that wasn't released, and Michael Craze did some for the 10th Planet that wasn't released.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's my memory of it, yeah.
I'm enjoying the way he says, oh, look, we could do so much with, the moon base. We could redo that. And I think, oh, gosh, within a certain period of time, there's this DVD where they animated it. And actually in an animation style that I think's better than the current animation style that they use, because it seemed more bespoke, because they're only doing, they're not trying to do a whole story. Like, Fury from the Deep or something like that, where they have to have these cookie cutter sort of characters that they sort of animate almost like marionettes. It was actually more sort of drawn animation in the moon base, I think is better. And I think, gosh, if this guy could have imagined what they were actually going to do in time, wow, because not that long between 99 and when that DVD would have came out, relatively.
No, but it is ironic, though, because I actually think that the Ice Warrior animations are probably the worst of the range. They're those very South Parky animations that at one stage it literally has an Ice Warrior sort of Cartman style sort of bobbing along the frame rather than walking. It's really, really bad.
Oh, yeah, the animation styles, because they used all different studios in the early days. So I don't think the people who did the moon base were the same as who did the Ice Warriors.
No. I don't think so. Or they had less budget, or different people or something.
And they were probably different again from whoever did the Invasion when that was done. Whereas now I think it is one team. And I think there's an Australian component to the team as well. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked on your show, on your episode.
No, look, they're the key points that I have. It's been really, really quite interesting, because I can remember... a big Australian summer's day being at Ridley College of Melbourne University, which hosted maybe 20 years of club Christmas parties. Famously, I know follower of the podcast, Marco, there was a big willow tree in the centre square of this college, and Marco went to grab it and said, crinoid attack, and brought half the tree down on top of him. And there was this big flurry to try and destroy the evidence before we all had to leave.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So yeah, that sort of reminded me of big Australian summers and Christmas, and being excited when the latest Doctor Who videos were arriving in the country.
Yeah, it's amazing. Because this is one release that I did not get. I don't know why. Maybe it was price. Maybe I just wasn't buying videos at the time. Actually, I was probably interested in converting to DVDs around 99.
Yeah, I'll be only a couple of years off buying my first DVD player.
Yeah.
I think it was when I started working full-time, so in 2003, I think was when I bought my first DVD player. Maybe even a year earlier when I was just working a bit. But certainly, I was only a couple of years away from, look, I'm going to have a DVD player. And the DVD range was coming out, and it's like, well, do I buy the Reign of Terror on VHS, knowing that at some point I'm going to buy it again on DVD?
Yeah.
And some I did, like Invasion of the Dinosaurs I did, because my off-air copy was pretty ordinary of that. Certainly part 1, so I bought that on VHS. But, like the censor rights, it's like, well, can I live with my off-air copy of the censor rights or well, not off-air, but a fan dub of the censoring? I can live without that till the DVD comes out. So yeah, there was a phasing out by that stage.
Brilliant. Well, look, Dave, we've done an episode with just 2 letters.
We have. It's been fun as always.
All right then. See you next time.
See you next time.